Hey guys, it's hard to believe it's been over 2 years since Persona 5 Royal released. And since it's Akechi's birthday today, the same goes for my 1-hour documentary on him in the proper Japanese sociocultural context. A video that is honestly still my proudest work on the channel to date, if only I had better audio quality at the time. But with all that said, it's been a while since we've seen that mysterious teaser of Akechi in Royal's true ending. And though we've had the excellent Persona 5 strikers come west in the meantime, we haven't seen anything regarding Akechi since P5R. So in this video, I really just wanted to take the opportunity to share and discuss some of the unused scenes in Royal that Faz has been so kind to upload for us. Because without these videos, I don't think we'd have many ideas, theories, or headcanons to go off of regarding any potential Akechi appearances in the future. But out of the tons of unused scenes that have been uncovered, I think the most interesting idea so far stems from this scene at a rehab center at the end of Royal. You can find the actual video in the cards and/or the video description, but the basic summary is that these two employees overhear Akechi talking about how he needs to return to Tokyo to return a debt to a certain someone. I'm sure you can guess who. And apparently the favor will be so major that the Phantom Thieves will be thanking Akechi for the rest of their lives. So, seeing how Akechi shows up to take the fall for Joker at the start of the Royal content, right before Maruki's reality takes complete control over the third semester, this unused scene sounds like a continuation of Akechi's promise to testify about Shido's corruption and his involvement with the conspiracy on Joker's behalf. But as we know, the entirety of Maruki's arc in the third semester puts a damper on Akechi's original plans to turn himself in, meaning it's already April by the time this unused cutscene plays. Now, since Joker was released from jail time during the last couple weeks of March, does this scene imply that there was some other major event that was going on between Joker's release and Persona 5 strikers? I mean, P5S doesn't start until July, so that does leave this period of about 3 months in which we don't have any real timeline of. Oh, and by the way, I think now is a good time to say that the vast majority of Akechi fans don't condone his actions and want to see him held accountable, including me, since his backstory only explains what his motives are, and does not justify his behavior. Though, the difficult thing regarding Akechi's crimes in the metaverse is that there's simply little to no evidence of them left. I've discussed this concept in part 5 of my Akechi documentary about how the metaverse was meant to be a very tempting place for Akechi, considering that, according to studies done by the US Department of Justice, the biggest deterrent to crime is not the punishment itself, but rather the certainty of being caught by authorities. And so, by the metaverse's very nature, it'd be beyond difficult to essentially impossible to present evidence for Akechi's crimes, meaning it's doubtful that he'll be held fully accountable in any criminal trial for all the lives he took. He definitely deserves and should have a jail sentence, no doubt. But it's hard to see what kind of charges they could pile on him that could result in a very lengthy one in the first place. Though, for people who think the main problem is that he hasn't shown any remorse, I'm here to argue that no, he clearly has shown some semblance of it. First off, by asking the Phantom Thieves to end Shido's crimes in his stead, and again in the third semester of Royal, in which part of the reason he's so bothered by Maruki's reality is that he basically gets off scot-free. And let's be real here, the only reason someone would feel badly about getting away with their past actions is if they believed they were in the wrong. And so, since we're on the topic of Akechi's remorse, Or at least his own flavor of it anyway. This brings me to another unused scene. Actually, it's an entirely scrapped mementos request from Akechi that was meant to have taken place in Royal's third semester. The video is about 20 minutes long and something I highly recommend giving a full watch, but for the sake of this little discussion video, the gist of this case is that it shakes up what we typically see from victims of the other mementos quests we've done throughout the game so far. By that, I mean, this time, the victim isn't actually entirely innocent himself. In fact, this Toji Karataki wasn't silenced out of fear of the one we changed the heart of, but rather, he kept silent and bided his time in order to cover up the fact that he was guilty of illegal activities himself. In his case, extortion. Akechi's goal here was very much his own flavor of justice, in that the outcome of the request makes the Phantom Thieves acknowledge another perspective about how blindly believing their victims can also lead to many problems, especially if they don't have all the facts in a case yet. Akechi himself counts as a similar example of this concept, having been both a victim and perpetrator. So yeah, it's a shame this mementos request went ultimately unused in Royal. But hey, I think this leaves a very intriguing idea that can be included in a future P5 spin-off and/or sequel. And in all honesty, I think this idea would still combine really well with Akechi serving some form of jail sentence like we just discussed earlier. How so? Well, I'll get there, but first I want to bring up this last intriguing tidbit that they haven't yet explored regarding Akechi, and that's the implication that he was a victim, or probably at least some part of Wakaba's research into cognitive science. So I'm aware that there's a theory about Wakaba's experimentation on Akechi based on the Featherman R game that's new in Royal. And while the theory is definitely very intriguing, I can't say I necessarily buy on to Wakaba having experimented on Akechi himself. But perhaps he's seen her doing it on others, as this concept art of hers demonstrates. And just seeing how Wakaba did the research under Shido, it's all but guaranteed that Akechi is aware of the intricacies of her research. And another one of Faz's videos imply as much, since in it, only Futaba and Akechi understand the complex cognitive science stuff that's all over Maruki's palace. So now, by combining the unused scenes I talked about earlier with this information/dialogue, I think it'd be pretty neat to see some one-off or one-time arc where the PT need Akechi's skills and expertise on the metaverse to make progress in some dungeon or something. And warning, P5 Striker spoiler incoming. Especially seeing how P5S introduced this concept of a jail existing even past the death of its owner. Perhaps a future Akechi appearance could have something to do with navigating through Wakaba's old research and/or an old palace or facility of hers. Though, in the end, I honestly would be fine if Akechi remains just dead too, even if he is my favorite character from Persona 5. His death following the defeat of Maruki is a great exploration of the third semester's themes, and his resolve is a fantastic culmination of his arc already. But if it is the case that he's truly dead, then I do want to bring up one more interesting thing of note, and that's the strange find of some unused shadow lines in P5 Strikers, which appear to be recorded by Akechi's Japanese voice actor, Soichiro Hoshi. One of the comments on the video speculates that maybe Akechi was originally supposed to be part of the shadow Phantom Thieves that Akane summons in the Kyoto jail. But yeah, I'm curious if you guys have any theories about what kind of idea Atlas may have been going for with these lines. Otherwise, I'm still personally down for a Souls-like game where we play solo Akechi pre-Persona 5 timeline. Or in other words, we play as Black Mask Akechi, soloing palaces on his own and taking out marks for people in Shido's conspiracy. But what are your ideas and or hopes for Akechi in future Persona 5 stuff, considering you even want to see him again in future spin-offs? I'd really just love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Feel free to join the active Discord server if you haven't yet at discord.gg/LadyVirgilia as well. And if you'd like to save on some of the most delicious gaming energy drinks out there, use code LadyV at Rogue Energy for 10% off your purchase, while also helping out the channel. Links in the description. Out of their energy lineup, my favorite flavors are cherry limeade, watermelon, and blue raspberry. Also, the caramel latte flavor that mixes with milk is pretty damn great too. Finally, I want to give a huge thanks to all my patrons, especially Jared Breland, Andreas Hansen, Captain Hobo, Big Clingy, Sam Bezjak, Thomas Perez Jr., Francesco Santoyo Rego, Silverwind847, Sathya Silvaraja, M. Yanalin, Gigi Sora, Platinum Rose, Malcolm Lowry, Killer Ninja 151, Melanie Gutierrez, Unholy Biscuit, Leviathan8685, and Eden Korseth.